Shalom, when the self souls but give no praise to how, Bashem Yao Shah, Bashem Kakudash, the Balon and supposed of great millstone and honest, you brothers doing the work of the most on truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, with whom the world English calls God, Jehovah Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh. The Son's true name is Yahweh Shai. And then we pray Yahweh Ba Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba meaning in, Ha meaning that, and Sham meaning name. So Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. It's a quick. Well, it's not going to be a quick one, but it's inspired by more and more. I don't know whether the algorithms are just showing me more conservative leaning content, right? But a lot of these devils, right? They're basically trying to pretend like slavery was just some light thing or whatever, what have you. However, part of that, comes into the fact that, he doesn't, really go into the history that much. He just says, yeah, we had you niggas as slaves and that was about it. Right. But then another thing that these, which Lord's Walking, get into that at some point because this man has, done a lot of heinous things to the children of Israel. When it comes to slavery, like this man did too much, right? The saying, you're doing too much. Esau did too much when he put his hand on the children of Israel during the time of transatlantic slave trade. But one of the arguments that he has, like, other people, there's been other slaveries and blah 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 blah, right? Which that is true, right? That is true. There have been other slaveries. Right, so I'm going to read this article from the historypress.co.uk/articles/slavery in history, right? And if I remember, I'll put the link for my resources. I only have two really in the description box. Right, so without further ado, we're going to go into it, bring out some precepts and see where the spirit leads, right? So it says slavery in history, right? Slavery has existed for millennia in varying forms in all parts of the world, affecting all races, and they got to put that in. Once again, he's trying to, he's trying to get away, right? He's trying to, sail into the sunset, right? Pretend like he isn't guilty, but he is guilty, right? So gender and age groups, it is only in recent times that has been globally outlawed with the United Nations General Assembly, right? Adopting the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. And as it's going to go into later on in the article, really all that happens is, it went underground, right? And then by definition as well, we are all we are all still slaves, right? When you look at the Emancipation Proclamation, what really happened was it was the moving of ownership, right, if you will, right? And ultimately everyone's a slave. Everyone is under debt slavery, right? These elites, right, they own you, right? So historically, there are many different types of slavery, including chattel, bonded, forced labor, and sex slavery. The key characteristics of slaveries are ones generally agreed, such as the loss of freedom, movement, and legal rights. Right. So once again, just to touch on the fact that for instance, even in the I always remember this going back. The apostles used to speak on this a lot. This is from the Black's Law Dictionary, right? Under the word employee, right? So this word is from the French, but has come somewhat naturalized in our language, right? Strictly and etymologically, it means a person employed, but in practice, in the French language, it ordinarily is used to signify in some official employment, as generally used with us. Though perhaps the point I want is a little bit further, so I'm just going to have to read into it. Not confined to any official employment is understood to mean some permanent employment position. The word may be more extensive than clerk or officer, may signify anyone in place or having charge or using a function, as well as one as one in office. Hopkins versus Cromwell, 89. Blah, blah. One who works for an employer, a person working for a salary or wages applied to anyone so working, but usually only to clerks, workmen, labourers, etc. But rarely to the higher officers of a corporation or government, or to domestic servants. Keith as a city of Monroe, all of that stuff, right? Generally, a person for whom services are performed has right to control and direct individual who performs service not only as to result to be accomplished by work, but also to details and means by which result is accomplished. right? Individual subject to direction as an employee, Youngs versus Demos, 70th. I think this is the name of the court, all of that stuff, right? But this is the one we want, right? Servant, right? It's synonymous with employee. Gooden versus Mitchell, Dell, maybe Delaware, I don't know, Super. And once again, I think this is the court case and the particular court in question, right? But that's what once servant is synonymous with employee, right? So when we look up the word servant, right, it says circa 1200 servant, male or female personal domestic attendant, one owing duty of a service to master or lord, one employed by another and subject to his orders. From Old French servant, servant, foot soldiers, noun use of servant, serving, waiting, present participle of severe, to attend, wait upon, right? From early 14th century as a slave, also used of bees, right? Northern American colonies and in US it was the usual designation for slave, right? 17th 18th centuries, yeah, right. So what are we basically getting? If you're an employee, you were just a slave, right? You have contractual obligations, right? You must, attend at this time, you must attend at that time, and then you will get, monies, right? Back in the time of chattel slavery, right, you'd get housing and etc etc etc, right? But that was about it. You'd get the bare minimum, right? So continuing on, says back in the article, right, it says in the ancient world, slavery developed for a number of reasons, including economic necessity, right? Especially in civilizations and agricultural economies where larger workforces were needed. Domination was another factor, right? So I'm just trying because I've got some precepts prepared, but what do you call? I forget where I wanted. I think one of the ones I wanted to touch on here, right, in sexual slavery, back up there. Sorry, what I was going into King Solomon. Right, it says First Kings 11:1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh. Right, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go in unto them, neither shall they come in unto you. Right, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon gave unto these in love. Right, so these are the heathen women. Right, you can pop heathen women, you just can't fall in love with them. All right, it says, and he had 700 wives, princesses, so Satan, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 what? Concubines, right? Concubines, look in this word of uncertain derivation, a concubine, a paramour, concubine, paramour, right? So it doesn't really say much, right? But concubine in polygamous society is a woman who lives with a man but has lower status than his wife or wives. Let's actually look into this a little bit more. So that's would you call it? That is would you call it? That is a more PG definition, right? It used to be a lot more a lot more explicit. The ones I've seen before, concubine, a woman who cohabits with a man to whom she's not legally married, especially when regarded as socially, sexually subservient, right? Others, like I said, the other one that I remember literally just said like a sex slave, right, more or less. Okay, but that's more or less the point. That's basically what a concubine is, and in the kingdom, right, that's going to be the case, right? And then it's gonna, yeah, we'll carry on when we reach it, right? So one of the things that we just said here, right, domination was another factor. War produced not only spoils such as gold, but also people to take as slaves, which eventually also became a form of status symbol. The more slaves you had, the wealthier and more influential you were. Right, so let's read that in the law. It's Deuteronomy 20:10. When thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And if it shall be, if it make the answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all of the people that is found therein shall be tributaries. Right, let's look into this world, right? So properly a burden, causing to face, i.e., a tax in the form of forced labor. Right, so you work for me now. Okay, for me now. Right, it says a gang or body of forced laborers, task workers, labor band or gang, forced service, task work, serfdom, tributary, tribute, levy, taskmaster, discomforted, labor land, labor gang. I mean, I don't need to read all of them, but you get the point, right? Uh, you know, slaves, right? Tributaries. One, it's a they can do what they want, but they gotta pay up, right? They gotta pay up, man, right? Tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee, right? And ultimately, this is what these heathens are going to be in the kingdom, right? They're going to be tributaries unto the children of Israel, right? But they'll love it. It says, and if it will make no peace, right, with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. And when the Lord Jehovah thy power hath delivered it into thy hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. But the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself, and thou shalt eat the spoil thereof, which the Lord Yahweh thy power giveth thee. Now, question, right? Why were the men killed? Right? Why were the women kept? What do you think? What do you think they were doing with those women? Okay, and then there are other accounts where it's like keep the single, which call the women that have never laid with man, keep them, but kill everyone else, right? Because in these different instances, when Israel went to war, the Lord gave different, different, rules and different commandments, right? He says, in this war, actually, don't take any sport, don't take anything, right? But in this particular instance, basically saying just an outline, you know, go into war into a city and they try to make war with you. Yeah, you just kill all the men, right? The women, right, and then the young, the young ones, the little ones. You can keep them to yourself. Keep them as the women become your concubines, and the young ones, become the young males become your slaves, right, and everything else you can take. Okay, so we don't need this. So I'll keep that. So I'll remember to put it in the description box as well. So it says the oldest known slave society was the Mesopotamian and Sumerian civilization located in Iran, Iraq. The oldest known written reference is there. It says Egypt was also another civilization whose economy also depended on slavery, right? For instance, you read our forefather Joseph, right, and his story, right? But ultimately, that was all, to fulfill the will of the Most High. Right, the relationship between slave and master was set down in law with some restrictions, such as slave owners could not force children to do unduly harsh physical labor, right? Which I actually even reading this and I'm like, right, that's that, because that's kind of like what they say here, right? In the Western world, right? Children can't do, what you call it, harsh labor, and this is New Egypt, right? Now, don't get me, Esau's the devil, right? Because there's that picture, right, of the young. Let me see if I can find it, right? Let's see. Let me see if I can find the one. There it is. Yeah, man, because Esau's just been making. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Slug, just bear with me. Esau's just been making what do you call it? This YouTube just a lot more difficult. Not YouTube, the Google just a lot more difficult to use, right? So you got this image here, right? You look at him, and this man had no mercy, right? On on the ancient, right, and on the young, all the women. But nowadays he tries to pretend, like he does. Right, but that's just not the case, right? But on what it was saying about Egypt, because this is modern day Egypt, right? It's Revelation 11:8. It says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, right, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified," right? So what is this going into? And there's quite a few layers to this, right? Dead bodies, right? It's referring to being spiritually dead, right? Proverbs 21:16. He that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the what? On the dead, right? And it says that great city, right, spiritually Sodom, right? What nation is just the number one proponent, right, of the alphabet movement, right? America, right? 1972, I believe it was. No, it's Roe v. Wade, but around 1970s, or maybe I think it was 1974, right? You had the Stonewall riots, right? And where was that, right? Stonewall, America. So this was 1969, right? This let's bring it in here. Greenwich Village, right, of all places, right? Move to another tab. That's the one, right? Stonewall riots, also known as Stonewall Uprising, Stonewall Rebellion, or simply Stonewall, were a series of spontaneous protests by members of that community in response to a police raid that began in the early morning hours of June 28, 1969, at the Stonewall Inn in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Lower Manhattan in NYC. Right? So, once again, what did we just read there? Right? Spiritually Sodom, right? But then also goes into and Egypt, right? And you look at the back of the dollar bill, what do you see? A pyramid. Right? And what else was Egypt known for? Right? Egypt is known for slavery, right? It's known for slavery, right? And what goes into where also our Lord was crucified, going into the fact that America's the image is the place where the image of Yahweh Shai has been crossed out, right? Has been defamed, right? Continuing on, so we go back here. Yeah, there's also the famous biblical narrative of Exodus whereby the Israelites were led to freedom, right? That we have there. So it says ancient Greece could be argued to be the world's first true slave society, whereby the majority of the economy was dependent on slave labor, right? So slaves were made up a third of the population, and the wealthier classes viewing manual labor with disdain. However, ancient Greece did not offer a form of manumission for slaves released from slavery. Manumission, that's what that word there means, for slaves whereby they could buy their freedom or were freed at their master's discretion. All right, it says it wasn't total freedom as they were never legally allowed to become full citizens, etc., etc. So, like, so with the decline of Greece and the expansion of Rome, slavery also expanded. At the height of the Roman Empire, up to 30% of the total population were enslaved, with the majority being made up of conquered peoples. We also see the emergence of slavery used for sport rather than labor, such as gladiatorial fights and large-scale brothels. Right, and once again, this is on this one, right? This you got the ones that the elites use, right? Which is why you get all of these children going missing, right? But and then in terms of just like there are certain races, if you will. I'll use London as an example, right? Where they're very, you have certain classes. So for instance, you got your Thai prosies. You get a lot of, not saying every Thai woman you see in London is a prosy, right? But get a lot of Thai women that will become prosies. You get a lot of Eastern European women that will become pros. You get a lot of Brazilian women that will become prosies here, right? Now, how they get here, that's a question, right? That is a question, because there is sex trafficking that happens, right? Um, and once again, who's doing that, right? Who's able to traffic people in and out of countries and stuff like that? Okay, we'll leave that as an open question. Right, but then on this point here, right, use of sport and this and the other, I thought it reminded me of the story, right, of King Amaziah, right? It says Second Chronicles 25:11. And Amaziah strengthened himself and led forth his people, and went to the valley of Salt and smote the children of Seir 10,000, and the other 10,000 left alive did the children of Judah carry away captive, right, and brought them unto the top of the rock, and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they were all broken into pieces. Might as well just throwing them down, throwing them down, throwing them down. Okay, that's what that's what they were they were doing, right? And you think about some of the things that the children of Israel are going to be doing, right, to get punishment, right, on these different nations that have touched us. Right, Israel's going to be having is going to be having fun with these heathens. Right, this is Isaiah 33:18. Thine heart shall meditate terror, whereas the scribe, whereas the receiver, whereas he that counted the towers. And the points there is at the beginning, right? Thine heart shall meditate terror, right? Because friends, yeah, man, when Nakim link up, right? Every now and then, man, boys get into details, want to, about the things that they want to do to our enemies, man, right? Things we want to do to our enemies, right? Because that's what they do. They lusted, right? They lusted to do the things that they did to us. Why? Because at the time it was in the power of their hands. But guess what? And this time it's going to be in the power of our hands, right? And the Lord is going to be with it, right? So continuing on, it says, sport, read that. It says the fall of the Roman Empire led to what is known as the Dark Ages. Goes into that. During the Anglo-Saxon years, slavery was still prevalent, especially so when Vikings had invaded and conquered large parts of the island. Vikings left no written records, but there were plenty of archaeological evidence of slave markets, the largest being in Dublin, right? So this is Bristol also had a thriving Viking slave market years before becoming the infamous, right, with its links to the transatlantic slave trade. Right, Viking slaves were mostly made up of captives or spoils of war, or were simply kidnapped and raised. Slaves had absolutely no power, etc., etc., etc. Right. So I'm just seeing if there's any that of, or whether I can just yeah, I'll read this bit, right? Indentured servitude, right, was another form of slavery that emerged much later during the colonial era. But it's just like, wait there, right? That's not necessarily true, right? Now let's look into what they define as this, right? Indentured servitude, right? Indentured servitude is a form of labor where an individual is under contract to work without a salary, to repay an indenture or loan within a certain time frame. For instance, in the law, I'm gonna have to look for that. One second. Slucky, let me just look for it. Just trying to remember the law so I don't butcher it. Slucky, just bear with me, Sluck. Because if I remember correctly, it's like if you don't pay, right, then you go to if you can't, like if you get caught stealing, right, then you what do you call it? Then you got to pay back what you stole. But if you can't pay, you got to work it off. Like, so I forget exactly how the law is, where the law is, how it's phrased, so I can look it up. But you can look it up, right? But another thing that the law says, right, is that as an Israelite man, you can have you can have an Israelite servant, right? This is Exodus 21:2. That bind Hebrew servant 6 years he shall serve, and in the seventh he shall go out free for nothing, right? If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, then the wife and her children shall be her master, and shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall say plainly, I'm a master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto judges, and he shall bring him to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through the all, and he shall serve him forever. Right. So an Israelite man can have an Israelite servant, right? But after 7 years he goes out, right? And he can he at that point he's supposed to be good, right? So that he can set up his own thing. Whereas now in Esau's society you work from 21 to 70, right? And even then you might not be good, right? So, I think that's pretty much, the points on these ones thus far, right? So, yeah, it is true. You have had lots of different slaveries throughout the world, right? You have had so-called blacks, putting other so-called blacks in slavery. You've had Arabs putting, people in slavery, etc., 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 right? But where you fucked up, right, you put the children of Israel in captivity, right? And it was a sore captivity, right? So you ain't gonna get away with that, right? Or you ain't gonna get away with scot free. You can be like, oh, but white people were in slavery, but blacks had whites in slavery, or you can say all of that, right? But what does the scripture say? It's Isaiah 14:15. Behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as a small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh of the ours as a very little thing, right? So when you look at the table of nations, right, you got the children of Israel, right, and those are the Lord's chosen. You can read that with Deuteronomy 4 and Deuteronomy 7, right? Lord, Israel is the Lord's chosen. Everyone else, the Lord don't care. The Lord don't care about us, as we're reading here, right? They are as a drop of a bucket, i.e., meaningless to the Lord, right? And it goes on to say in Zechariah 2:8, it says, "For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye." So by touching the children of Israel, right, the Lord saw, and the Lord was pissed, right? And one of the next pieces that we're gonna get, right? He thinks, all these heathens in general think they've gotten away with it, right? But you touched the wrong ones, right? But this is it. We were given into your hands, right? But then Scripture says you forwarded the affliction. In fact, let's try to find that. This is Zechariah 1:15. Now I'm very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. All right. So here it is: the children of Israel are given into the hand of these different heathens, right? But these heathens went too far, right? And once again, the Lord sees, and the Lord ain't gonna let you get away scot free, right? Of Zechariah 2:9 now, right? It says, "For behold, I will shake mine hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil to their servants, and ye shall know that Yahweh of hosts hath sent me," right? And even on that one made me think of this. Is it this one that I want? No, it's not this one. Let's try this one. Yep, Jeremiah 30:16 says, "Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey." I'm just going to also get the one in Isaiah 14:2. Right, it says, "And the people shall take them, right, and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." Right, so we're going to pay you back for everything that you've done. Right, and the second to last one, penultimate one, right, Psalms 50:21, "These things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself, but I'll reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes." Right, so the Most High basically saying, yo, basically, because Esau's been going, just doing the most for so long, Esau's thought that the Most High is with him, right? But the Most High is not with you, Esau, right? Ecclesiastes 8, right? Because sentence against an evil work, right, is not executed speedily. Therefore, the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Right, so these devils think that nothing is gonna happen to them. Right, think that they're in good case. Right, but it says, "I will reprove thee." Right, so the Most High's got something for you. I was going to end on this, right, and kind of touching on the point earlier on, right, about playing sport with the Edomites, right, chucking them off, meditating terrors, right, which is in verse 9. In Psalms 137:7, "Remember, O Yahweh, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, race it," right, which means RASE, which goes into destroy, right? Just confirm that there we go. Right, "to bear, to be nude, uncover, leave destitute," right? "Discover empty, raise, pour out," right? "Lay bare," right? So basically destroy, right, even to the foundation thereof, right? "O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed? Happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones," right? So all of these things that you did to the children of Israel, they're coming back for you, right? And once again, to just to conclude the video and the topic, right? Yeah, different nations had other nations in captivity. This is true, right? But none of them were the children of Israel, right? The Lord cares about the children of Israel, right? When you have the children of Israel in captivity, right? That's when you fucked up, right? And there are laws to having slaves. There's ways you treat your slave, and Esau went far and beyond that. And laws will, if the Spirit wills, can do a little series on that, right? Just going into the different, just the different atrocities that this man did, right? So as always, Lord's will, that was edifying. Till next time we say Shalom.